Alright, so we had another question here that says, on average it takes you about 20 minutes to get to school with a standard deviation of 2 minutes. Suppose that a normal model is appropriate for the distributions of drive times. How often will you arrive at school in less than 22 minutes? And how often will you arrive there in more than 24 minutes? So we know that we have a normal distribution here. We know that our average drive time is 20 minutes with a standard deviation of 2 minutes. So to solve these problems, we need to draw in a normal curve. We know that our average is 20 minutes. And then I want to go up and find my standard deviations. So if I go one standard deviation above, I'm just adding 2 to that. If I add 2 again, I'll be 2 standard deviations at 24. And 3 would be at 26. Going the other direction, 18, 16, 14. Alright, so the first question asked, how often will we arrive at school in less than 22 minutes? So how often do we get there in less than 22 minutes? And that would be all of these scenarios here. So if we arrive in 14 minutes, we're good. 16, 18, 20. Anything less than 22, we're good. So we're going to find what percentage of the time do we fall into this shaded in area that I just sketched in. So we know, based on the empirical rule, we said the empirical rule is 68, 95, 99.7%, that 68% of the time we fall within 1 standard deviation of the mean. Which means that if the whole curve has to add up to 100, that 32% of the time we're outside of 1 standard deviation. Which means that 16% of the time we're below, and 16% we're above. So if I want to find the area, or the percentage for this part here that we've shaded in, I just need to add together these two percentages. The 68% that I know is inside, and the 16% that I know is outside on that side. So A, how often will I arrive at school in less than 22 minutes? I'll arrive there 16 plus 68 would be 84% of the time. So 84% of the time I arrive in less than 22 minutes. Question B asked how often, I guess, sorry, that took me a second to realize what I was saying. How often do I arrive in more than 24 minutes? So what section does this correspond to? So again, think about how this is 2 standard deviations. Remember, the area inside 2 standard deviations, according to empirical rule, is 95%. So that means that outside of that would be 5%. So I'd have 2.5% here and 2.5% here. So that I can clearly see this is what I wanted right there. So 2.5% of the time it takes me more than 24 minutes to get to school. Alright, so there's another example for using the empirical rule, which again says that if your data is symmetric and unimodal, that 68% of your data falls within 1 standard deviation of the mean, 95% falls within 2 standard deviations of the mean, and 99.7% falls within 3 standard deviations of the mean. And 100% falls under the curve if you add it all together. So there's another example of empirical rule. Hope it helps.